Hello, everybody. My name is Adam, and I'm on a quest to be the most prolific reviewer of all time. And frankly, today I feel a little bit crappy. Um, it's just this sling, and I can't sleep. I sleep for like a couple of hours every night, and then I wake up, and then it's a struggle to fall back asleep again. And I wake up and I'm really, really cranky, and I can't do anything because I can't type, I can't play on the computer. So the basic thing I can do is watch television and movies. So yesterday I decided to watch Predator Badlands because I heard some good things about it. So I watched it, and yeah, let me tell you who it stars first. So um, it's directed by Dan Trachtenberg and stars Elle Fanning and Demetrius Demetrius Schuster colon uh, Kolo Amantangi. That's a name I'm guaranteed to have pronounced wrong. And I don't know if I need to explain what predators are because I'm sure everybody knows what a predator is, the monster. So basically, Predators is a franchise, and it started in the 80s where with a film called Predator starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. And basically, it was an alien creature that came to Earth to hunt people, and that's the beginning. And they've put a lot of like work into creating a backstory about these, and um, so basically predators are connected to xenomorphs, and xenomorphs are the aliens from Alien. And basically xenomorph is an it's a killing, unthinking monster. So a xenomorph will kill you because it has like a basic biological function. But a predator will kill you because it's a rite of passage, and they want the challenge of the hunt or whatever. So there have been good predator movies and bad predator movies. There have been good alien movies, of course, and bad alien movies. And the it's interesting because they are connected, because there was Alien versus Predator 1 and Alien versus Predator 2, and now they exist in the same universe, even though those films were not great. So they exist in the same universe. So everything that happened in the Alien franchise has happened in the Predator world, and vice versa. Um, but Predator, the first movie and the second movie, they are in modern times, and of course, we are not colonizing the far reaches of space. So the the timeline of the franchise shifts a lot. And in this particular one, it's unclear exactly when it is, but it's in the far future. And it involves the story of a predator, or Yaudija. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that. That's the name they come up with them in the movie. Yaudija, who is small for his species, and because he's small, he's ostracized. And I'm not going to go into great detail about what happens because I think you should watch the film. It's really interesting. But then he, for plot reasons, gets sent to this planet that they call the Aduja call the planet of death, and he is trying to hunt like this prey that nobody has ever captured. And along the way, he meets a cyborg who is heavily damaged, and this cyborg has been sent by the evil corporation from the Alien franchise, but I forgot their name, but it's right there, the Wayland Yutani team. So they've sent a group of, not cyborgs because they're not half human, androids. They sent some a team of androids to this death planet, because if they sent humans, then obviously they would all be killed very quickly because human beings are pretty fragile. And that's why you send robots for space exploration. But anyway, they have given one of them, named Thea, is it Thea? Yes, I believe her name is Thea. And they've given her like a lot of consciousness and empathy for other creatures. And they've given her like so-called sister also that, but she's more aware of why they gave it to her. They gave it to her so they could exploit the resources of this planet, right? Because it's an evil corporation. Um, so anyway, Thea has been cut in half because she's been lost on this planet of death, and she sees this Yoja um, guy named Deck guy, is a predator alien on this planet, and he's trying to hunt this thing, and it's not going well. Like, he probably would have been dead in a few minutes if Thea hadn't intervened, and she starts to speak to him in his own language, because apparently the humans have invented a universal translator which works with different species. Um, that's a bit of a stretch, just because, like, it's unclear exactly when this happens. Maybe they've had like a lot of experience with the predator species, but later there is a bit where they want to capture Deck, and they're debating whether to capture him or not because he's so small. So uh, he's not like a typical specimen. So I think if they don't even know enough biologically about the species, they probably wouldn't know enough about the language to have a universal translator. And I think it's one of those, it's kind of those throwaway things so they can move the plot along, but it doesn't make any sense. Um, Universal translators kind of make more sense in the world of Star Trek because they, I mean, there's aliens that they've never met. So, a universal translator, I think, works if you are aware of the language of the people that you are speaking to, or aliens. And in Star Trek, for the most part, they are aware of like Klingons and Vulcans and all of the major species. And it wouldn't make sense that it would automatically be able to translate a completely new language because, you know, we haven't established that all languages share the same features of human language. And, we just have to look at our planet. We have whales that they're doing studies on, and they think that they might have grammar and complex communications, which is completely different from the way that we talk. Dolphins have names for each other. So if we don't even understand animals on the same planet, how would we understand animals on a different planet? But that's a bit of a non sequitur. So back to the plot of the movie. So Dak is this predator, and he's like really goal focused, really goal oriented, and he takes Thea, who has been cut in half, and ties her around his back, and then so Thea can explain the flora and fauna of this planet, and Deck cannot die, and he can achieve his mission. And I don't want to spoil the movie too much because it is a relatively new movie, and I think it is really, really entertaining. Um, so I'll just say a couple of things about it. Maybe we'll stay on the language thing for one moment because it's really interesting. So this is the first move. So we've been aware in movies before, like Prey or other Predator movies, where we know that they have a language because it's written down, and you might hear a few words. But this is the first time when, at least in film, I think they've done it in the novelizations and the extended universe, but it's the first time in film where they've actually constructed a language for the predator, the Yuduja species, to speak. And that's actually a really fascinating branch of linguistics. That's called it's a constructed language or a con language, and it's a hobby for some people. So the most famous constructed language in fiction are probably connected to Star Trek. So you have Klingon, or maybe when Game of Thrones didn't end and it was more popular, High Valerian was also constructed language. And so, what's the difference between like those languages and you're watching some random sci-fi thing and you hear a bunch of gobbledygook? Well, those languages were designed by linguists to mimic natural human speech and to think about like what kind of sound an alien would make with the mouth that a predator has. And I don't know who did the language, although it's really good. Are they gonna tell in the Wikipedia? Production? Oh, they don't say. Oh no, they do. Uh. Mm-hmm. Do. Okay. Yeah, so they don't really talk about. Maybe they do talk about it, but I don't have time to go through the Wikipedia article with you right now. But they don't talk about the construction of the language, unfortunately, because it's pretty hard to come up with something that sounds natural. Like if you had a predator just open its mouth and then the sounds that came out were Italian sounds, that's why this really important, and it really helps uh, construct the world building of this movie. And I think that you can see this movie without actually having seen any other Predator movies, and it's quite different from other Predator movies because and this is something I like about science fiction and this style of science fiction. There are no actual humans in this movie. So there are androids that look like human, but they're not human, right? And one of the androids is speaking to a character called Mother, and you suspect that that is human, but maybe it's also some kind of AI program. So the whole the details of creating this story are really really good, except for this sort of trite um, universal translator trope, which I mean, it's not just a problem with Predator, and I understand why they did it for plot reasons. But I think that the really interesting thing is that we've seen movies from the perspective of our ourselves, right? And in some movies, the predators have been more heroic, like in the Aliens versus Predator franchise, but you know, those movies weren't great. So this is the first good movie where we get the perspective of the actual species. And I think I'm not going to tell you what happens in the end of the movie, but I think it's kind of easy to think about that as some sort of like, yeah, everything is fine now, everything is okay. They've learned the power of friendship. But the important part is the thing that happens in the end of the movie is according to the predator or Yaduja's culture and, biology. So it's not like the power of friendship and magic, right? So, and, you know, he does make a decision, and I think, like, we don't really see that aspect of, like, because, you know, they made this is another tangent, but I was reading a bit about it. So the first Predator came out, and then there was Predators, and people were criticizing the character design of that because they looked too urban, the Predators. And somebody, the costume or the creature designer, said something at the time like, you're trying to think about these creatures like they're monothematic, but or that they're all the same, but they're like an entire species. So there's individuals in the species. And if one looks different, then that's because, you know, there's a different kind of individual in that species. And so I think that they, very early in the franchise, they gave themselves a lot of flexibility and creativity about what kind of aliens they could show and what kind of stories they could tell as well. And if you haven't seen the movie Prey, it's also really, really good. I remember it's kind of from a different perspective, but yeah. So this movie is, I think, the first movie where the story is mainly told from. I mean, it's not like the predator is telling the story, but you see things from its perspective or his perspective. I'm not sure. Well, he says father and mother, but those could be like our translated words. That's another non sequitur, but it's crazy because you know if we have a universal translator, the universal translator is going to tell us things like, "Oh, that's my mom." That's my dad, or that's my mother, that's my father. So those two words, those four words in English have different connotations, right? So it's different to say mother or mom, right? But like imagine a species, and unfortunately I don't know the answer to this. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know how the predator species reproduces. Are they like, you know, male and female, or is it completely different? So we hear like mother and father, but it might mean something completely different to the Yaduja. And that's the interesting thing about sci-fi, you know. It asks you all of these questions that probably are not that important right now, but like when we discover aliens, they are going to be really important. Like we, I think sci-fi has done a really good job about exploring the idea of alien life for us. And now we just have to go out and find them or them find us because we are well prepared. Like we're well prepared if they're hostile. I mean, if they're hostile, we don't have any chance. But we have like so many different kinds of aliens in fiction, and I think that that is actually one of the reasons we have imagination as human beings is to imagine things that could possibly happen so we could be prepared for them. At least, like, it won't be a surprise if, we discover there's aliens and they hunt people. I mean, for fun. We're not going to be like, never heard of that. Wow, shocking. or or I don't know, an alien that comes to Earth and its only weakness is water. Never heard about that also. All right. So if you've seen the Predator Badlands movie, and you like it or dislike it, put your thoughts in the comment section. I'm trying to get to 200 subscribers by the end of January. I have 157 right now, I believe. So it's going on slowly and progressively. All right. Thank you. Bye bye.